Welcome back, Frontier family. Hope you're ready to learn more and earn more. In this episode, we have Clifford Walker, founder of the Real Estate Corral Investors Network and known to many as the Cowboy Closer of Texas. He's over 5 years in real estate investing experience with heavy knowledge of the wholesaling and flipping niche. Cliff has been a part of thousands of deals and is here today to dive deeper into helping the next generation start and scale their wealth through real estate wholesaling. So let's get into it. Clifford, welcome to the podcast, man.
Ooh, doggy. What is going on, brother? Man, first off, it is an honor. It's a blessing and just a privilege to be here. And so I mean every bit of that sincerely. So I'm excited to be joining with you guys.
Absolutely, sir. I would say the privilege is ours. I think there's plenty of information we can get out there today and help the next person kind of figure out some baby steps in maybe a new industry they weren't aware of or again, kind of grow and improve in wherever they need. So to that exact point though, right? Wholesaling wasn't your first venture. There was something prior to this that you were heavily involved in that you eventually stepped out of. What can you tell us a little about your early experience and how you eventually found wholesaling for yourself?
So what was funny is I was actually a truck driver before I got started in real estate investing. And shout out to all the truck drivers. I don't know how they do it. I did it for 7 years and I absolutely hated every bit of it. I did. I hated every bit of it. I was over the road. I was away from the house, away from my wife, my daughters, showering at truck stops, eating at truck stops. Like it sucks. It absolutely sucked. And so I knew that that wasn't it for me. Like there was a bigger calling, a better calling on my life. I didn't know what it was. But what was funny is I was driving through West Texas, right? And literally like going past out there, Odessa. And I was listening to a podcast at the time that was on satellite radio. And it was weird because, hindsight's 2020 looking back at it. I was never really into podcasts and personal development then. But I guess it was the only thing on the radio at the time or whatever. But it was a guy out in New York talking about wholesaling real estate and how much money he was making, how he was doing it. I forget the gentleman's last name. His first name's Mark, but I was like glued to that front seat, like just going down the road, listening to every single thing that he was saying. And that one podcast genuinely changed my life because from that moment on, like I went down this like wholesaling rabbit hole. So I'm happy to be here because I know the power that you guys are making behind a podcast. There's going to be one episode, one podcast, one saying, one quote, something that's going to trigger somebody and that's going to just light a fire under them like you wouldn't believe.
That's the goal, right? That's the beautiful part of these conversations, whether it's one piece of information or a couple of bits here and there, it's all about exactly how can we find something to produce to help the next generation, man. So to that point, right, you listened to that episode. What kind of happened next? Were you just constantly diving into books, talking to networks? Where did you kind of go from there?
So it was funny. I come home and I tell my wife, I'm like, we're getting started in wholesaling real estate. And she looks at me crazy like, what are you talking about? What's wholesaling real estate? But it was awesome because when I explained it, like she just went down that rabbit hole with me. And so I was blessed to have her. But we started attending almost every single conference that we could attend, every single event that we can, reading books, YouTube University, the whole nine. And then finally, when things started to click for me, is when I actually invested in my first mentoring coach. That's local here in Dallas, and we're still really good friends now. But they taught me the game, basically, on how to get started, what to do, how to close the transactions, the whole nine.
So prior to this person, that you hadn't been able to close a deal by yourself?
No.
So a pretty big leap.
Yes, I was as green as it came. So if there's somebody on here that's listening and they're like, yeah, I don't know about real estate investing. I don't have any experience. Y'all, I promise you, I didn't have any experience either. Like, surprisingly, real estate investing is simple. we actually make it more complicated than what it is.
Absolutely, and that's kinda why I would love to detail your first deal if possible. What about that first deal? You know, you're still transitioning out of the job, right? You haven't fully replaced that income, so you're still working. You both are diving as much as you can. You've got all this experience or this knowledge, right? You've got all this knowledge behind you, and you're trying to gain that experience. How did that first deal go down, and kinda what laid the path forward?
So what was funny, and I'll kind of explain a little more too, I was cold calling like a madman. So when you're doing wholesaling or the model that I do it, where I'm direct to seller, reaching out to property owners who basically are in a distressed situation. Maybe they're in foreclosure or tax delinquent, maybe probate, meaning they just lost a loved one and now they've inherited this house. So, anyways, I'm over the road and I'm like literally calling, dialing and calling. I don't recommend it, by the way. Please don't do that. But that just kind of goes to show like the sense of urgency I had because I was so unhappy with my current position and job. But I was cold calling 10, 11 hours a day. And it was insane. I ended up getting like 6 deals my very first month, like hitting the ground running. But anywho, one of my very first deals was a property out in Arlington, Texas. It was a husband and wife. They were going through divorce and foreclosure at the same time. And we went in there. I made them a cash offer on their property. And so specifically, and I'll kind of explain how wholesaling works too for the listeners. With wholesaling, you're basically the middleman or the middlewoman, meaning I will go and get Drew's property under contract at a set price, let's say $100,000. And then I'll go and call Nathan and say, hey, Nathan, you interested in buying a property? I have an amazing house right here. I have it for 150, right? So I have it under contract with Drew for 100, but I'm selling it to Nathan for 150, and I make the difference in between, right? And actually, I do not have to have the $100,000 in my bank account. I'm actually just assigning the contract over to Nathan, right? So I'm selling my equitable interest in that property, if that makes sense. And that's how I get paid.
For sure. So, yeah, so then when you're going through this first deal, right, a lot of that experience and knowledge of putting that agreement together comes in very much handy, right? And so whether it be through YouTube University or a mentor itself, sounds like a lot of prep goes into that documentation. Do you have a general idea of what typically that looks like? Are there multiple forms, one form? What are you typically putting together?
It's super simple. Like there's few different ways that you can kind of do it. You know, I hate this analogy, but I'm going to say it, and I always say it, and I don't know why. There's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Like, you can use your state contracts depending where you are. Different states have different laws depending on whether you can use your Texas, your traditional contract. If not, you can create a standard 1 to 3 page purchase agreement. Honestly, you can get these online from title companies, attorneys, tons of places like that. But the actual like assignment contract is typically just a 1-page contract, just saying that I'm going to assign my contract between me and Drew over to Nathan for this price. He signs it, I sign it, we send it to the title company.
Just to get an idea of the target market, you're really focusing more on like the single family homes or like small multifamily, still considered residential stuff, right? That's kind of where wholesaling sticks for you, at least.
For me, it's 1 to 4 units. Yeah. So I typically don't mess with anything 5 units or above.
Is there the ability to scale to that level? Is it still considered wholesaling when you get to that larger level, or is it some point you're kind of brokering deals?
No, 1,000%. I mean, there's commercial wholesalers, if you will. You know, there's people that do the same thing for multifamily. Yeah. You're just analyzing the deal different. You're looking at different numbers.
Absolutely, yeah. So to recap a little bit, it sounds like, yeah, you're marketing yourself essentially. You're marketing yourself as a person who gets deals done and closed, right? You find a distressed seller, you transition that into a contract and you find a way to pass that contract on while all having kind of a fee in the middle, essentially, right?
Exactly. And that fee, while I love this, we talk about learn and earn on the podcast, right? I don't know, number one, if there's any new entrepreneurs or somebody kind of wanting to create additional income or maybe become their own boss, nobody can put a cap on your income. And I absolutely mean that. Nobody can. Um, I have members in my community that are actively doing 100K plus a month in closed deals. Like that's not uncommon. It's not difficult to do. Well, I'm not going to say it's not difficult. Like it takes a lot of work, effort, and energy. Like let me back up there. But it's not uncommon if you're willing to put the work in. Also, I don't know any industry where you can basically get started with sheer grit and hustle, right? You don't have to have a bank account full of money. You don't have to go and qualify for a loan. You don't have to get business funding or credit. You could literally go down to the county, which is public data, pull the pre-foreclosure list and start reaching out to those property owners, right? Think about this. Like if we're going to start up a restaurant, right? You got to buy the food. You got to buy the location. You got to hire the staff. You got to buy every single thing that comes up with that, right? You're into it thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars before you even open the doors, right? If you're doing a food truck, you got to buy the food truck. If you're starting a tech company, you got to buy, I'm not a tech person, whatever comes along with buying a tech company or starting a tech company, I don't know. But you get the point. That's why I love, 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 love real estate investing, because you can truly get started with little to no money. And that opens up the pool for everybody to start playing. And there's room for so many people to start playing. Like there's no shortage of problems when it comes to real estate.
I want to expand on that a little bit too, because I know through previous conversations, right, there's kind of a mixed view, right? Some people see real estate as like you're competing against each other, but a conversation we had is like, no, it's more so the opposite, right? If you essentially work to build your team, everybody wants to help each other, and diving into that a little bit, right? Like there's team members that are involved in this, not always just the wholesaler. Sometimes you have, to your point, the title company involved or some other players. Detail us out a little bit if you could, some of that team that you have built out and what other people could expect for themselves.
I'll say when it comes to real estate investing, I'm a big believer that real estate is a relationship-based business, right? The more hands you shake, the more money you make, 1,000%. So you have to be willing to network and work with other people and play well with other people. But it opens up just the realm and possibilities of what you can do. Like this year, we started doing deals in Atlanta. Y'all, I'm sitting in my office in Texas, right? I'm not going to look at houses. I'm not going to walk houses. I'm not doing anything like that. And we have properties under contract right now in Atlanta. That's only because of relationships and building those relationships. So you definitely want to do a lot of networking, go to local meetups, join communities, things of that nature. Of course, when it comes to actual closing these transactions, you want to have and do everything with a title attorney or a title company. Every single transaction gets closed through a title company or title attorney. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. They're going to have your back. They're going to make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed. And so, yeah, there's a level of networking and partnering that goes on.
And from your experience with it, do you recommend any local networking events, or are there some of them more on a national level? What have been really helpful for you?
Um, it's kind of a mixture. There's tons of free that you can look at, like whatever area that you're in. Like you can put in Houston real estate market or Dallas real estate investors, right? And find several different free ones. I'm a big believer in coaching and mentoring and working with somebody that has already kind of paved the way. A lot of those coaches or mentors including myself, we have private communities. And I will say this, I hope this doesn't sound awful, but when you do, you get a different caliber of person. Like you get people who are a lot more serious because they made it upfront investment to be a part of these communities. And so what that allows you to do is get access to now private money lending and funding on these deals. So let's just say you came across a great deal and you're like, I think I want to keep it. Like, I think I want this for a rental property. And so now you have access to private money lenders and things of that nature in some of these private communities. So I would highly recommend people do that as soon as they possibly can.
And the more people we talk to, right, it's kind of a broken record at this point, and no different. Not to be mean, but it's that fact, right? You're never going to know everything. You're never going to have enough experience. Like, there's always going to be somebody who knows a little bit more. So why fight them and why not work with them, right? Even if they're someone totally different, right? Even if it's just a real estate agent, right? There's no reason to ever be anything other than cordial with them and try to work together to find those deals and build that networking and build that experience. So that's great. So if I can flip to a little bit of 180 here, it sounds like outside the networking aspect, which is huge of this, there's some marketing that heavily goes involved into this, right? You kind of got to start that lead generation funnel, if you will. Could you talk to us a little bit about your kind of approach to the marketing in this aspect?
Um, so we do a lot of direct to sellers, like reaching out to property owners, either there's several different ways you can do it. Cold calling, PPL, sending out postcards, Google ads, Facebook ads. You can launch that and get that stuff set up, but it's just about finding something that works for you. I tell people there's a couple different things to look at when you're starting your marketing. Number one, take into consideration your time. And then two, take into consideration how much you can spend, right? Like something like cold calling, it's very, very cheap to get going and doing, but it's going to take a lot of your time. Facebook ads, on the other hand, is not going to take as much of your time, but it can add up very quickly in regards to cost to start generating leads. So you just have to figure out what works for you. For me, I didn't have money to spend for marketing. So that's why I had to resort to cold calling, because I had to just put in the sweat equity, right? Time, what is it? Time, talent, or treasure? You're going to pay in one of them.
Right. Hey, Frontier family. If you're finding value in today's episode, then Nathan and I want to tell you about a Facebook and LinkedIn community we're trying to grow of like-minded entrepreneurs who want to learn more to earn more. We share and discuss relevant topics, strategies, ideas, and overall ways to grow your net worth. So if you're interested in learning more, check down in the description of this video or this podcast to find the links to those pages. All right, let's get back into it. Right, just for reference too, what was kind of your return rate on that, right? How many calls were you making until you finally got one that worked? Or someone that even just picked up the phone? What was your kind of experience with that cold call?
Oh man, I was making tons of calls. I was making hundreds of calls. And I'll share this, like today, we still cold call to this very day, but we're going to talk to about 90 to 95 people before we get a close deal money in the bank, right? And this is what happens when people jump into real estate, specifically wholesaling. They're going to call 50 people and they're going to hear all no's. And they're going to say, I knew this didn't work, right? And no, it works. You just really need to keep going. You need to keep going. You're almost there, right? Remember, this comes down to volume, consistency, and follow-up. These are the main three things that you have to make it almost in any business: volume, consistency, and follow-up, right? And so whatever marketing you do, I need you to stay consistent with it to do the volume and the follow-up.
And I love the follow-up message that you have with your team, right? Rather than forcing that sale, your goal is to educate someone through that tough situation that they're in, right? You're not trying to take advantage of someone. You're really trying to be there to educate them to find the best deal for them, right? Like, no different. If it is a better deal for them to go somewhere else, it's no problem, right? It's no sweat off your back. Hey, that is a better option for you. But talk to us about that approach to your market, right? Because that's part of your funnel. As the deals are coming in, what is your approach to these people, and how are you educating them through these situations?
See, I'm glad you brought that up. For me specifically, I don't agree with the notion of going in here and just lowballing people on their properties. These people are going through a very tough season in their life, right? They're going through divorce, they're going through probate, or they lost a loved one, foreclosure, whatever it may be. They don't need somebody to come in there and pray on them. They need somebody to come in there and pray with them and help them and shine some light through this tough season that they're in. And so for me, I believe that we are building generational wealth by serving other people. When I go into a conversation and I focus on how can I serve them, how can I help them, then if we're a good fit to work together, great. If not, that's great too. And so it just really creates a true win-win situation.
And in these education situations, I'm assuming you're kind of talking through some of the numbers and some of the options available, whether it be like a quick turnaround or this for like, are you talking at that level?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on the conversation and what's going on there will kind of determine how deep we go. But yeah, I want to give them options because I want to make me the best option, right? Does this work for you? Does this work for you? Does this work for you? If the answer is no to all of those, then okay, well then maybe I am the best option here. If not, then here, let's go do this because this sounds like this is the best option for you. And again, my goal isn't just to line my pocketbooks, it's to serve at the highest level and do what's best for that family, whether I'm it or not.
Absolutely. And what typically leads to that deal working out for you and the customer? What is usually that happy medium that they decide to work with you?
Speed and convenience. One major thing that we offer as real estate investors is speed and convenience. If you were wanting to sell your house right now, Drew, but you're like, I need to be gone by the end of this month, right? Well, a real estate investor can make that happen for you, right? You need speed and you need it convenient, like, right? If you were to sell that house the traditional way with listing it with an agent, that could take 30, 60, 90 days, how whoever knows how long, right? And so it really just depends on their situation.
And is there like some verbiage you really try to stick with or stay away from? How do you kind of keep it a nice, casual, and educating conversation?
Just by talking like I'm talking with you. um, I don't follow a script. When it comes to talking to sellers, I don't. I really like my conversations to flow naturally, and just be fully open and transparent. And like, have you ever talked to somebody and you know they're following a script, right? Like maybe a salesperson or maybe a telemarketer or somebody calls you and you can just tell they sound so robotic. People don't typically trust that, in my opinion, or maybe it's just me, right? I get on talking just as country as I do. Hey, what's going on? How are you? This is who I am. You got time to chat. Like I just keep it casual.
And are there any additional struggles you'll try to help the person through to help kind of move this contract? Are there any typical like boundaries you kind of have to help overcome?
Yeah, there's always gonna be little hurdles because specifically with real estate or the way that I do it, we are looking for problems, right? Problems equal opportunities. And so my mom used to say, if I go looking for trouble, I'm going to find it. Well, if you go looking for problems, you're going to find them, right? And so a lot of these properties come up with issues that we have to overcome, whether that's airship issues, tax delinquent issues, title issues, things of that nature. We do have to overcome them.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And definitely things you can learn more too as you dig deeper into this, and not no need to dive too much into it, right? The possibilities are endless. You listen to anyone in real estate, they'll all have their own experiences of, yeah, man, I went through this, I went through that, and it'll all be different. So I definitely appreciate that. So to kind of keep things moving forward, right? So the first step is kind of that marketing lead generation funnel. The next step being the deal, getting it under contract. Tell us a little bit about transitioning into finding other people, right? So you're marketing on the front end, but also it sounds like on the back end, you got to find buyers. You got to find people that you're marketing with there to say, hey, is this property what you want? So how do you kind of go about developing that kind of lead pool?
Through your networking that you're doing, right? All along the way, talking to people, hey, are you an in buyer? Are you looking for deals? A lot of the times in the free groups that I just mentioned, you'll actually see people posting their deals like, hey, I just got this property under contract. Are there any buyers looking here? If you're a part of a coaching or a private community, you're able to sell your deals there. So it's not difficult. The hardest part is getting the deal. Selling it is the easy part.
Okay. I like that. I like that. And is it always just individuals? Are you ever selling to like companies or other investor pools that are willing to kind of take that on?
Yes, sir. Yeah, hedge funds. Oh, we love them. We love them. We love them because they pay ridiculously, like higher than most investors can. Um, and so it creates a great opportunity for you as an investor, whether you're just getting started or even if you're, a seasoned investor with a full blown team, right? Like if you partner and work with a hedge fund specifically, then yeah, the amount that they can pay per deal is a lot more. And that little assignment fee that I mentioned, that's what we call it, an assignment fee. It can be anything, right? I've had some as small as $1,000. My largest one as of today has been $74,000, right? One of the people in my community, they have one at $170,000 for one single deal, one single assignment fee. So it's just whatever the deal will allow, but that can be anything in between, anything in between.
And so a lot of that then just kind of comes down to how you're putting the deal together, right? Like you're essentially having to be the middleman seeing the value in the property to kind of mark it up, right? Because someone doesn't want to buy something that's worth less than what you're putting it up for. So how do you kind of go about managing that balance, right? You don't want to overprice it, you don't want to underprice it. What's kind of your general perspective there?
So you just have to kind of look and see, uh, like you said, the opportunities there, right? If your house is totally destroyed, but you know that when it's fully fixed up, it'll sell for $500,000, right? But you got it under contract at 100,000, 150,000. Well, you might have an investor that'll pay $200,000 for that because they'll go and put 100K into it and still be able to sell it for $500,000, right? And walk away nicely. So it really just depends on the deal and just kind of looking at it high level. But I don't want to scare the listeners, and I don't want them to think that there's like this is a lot or it sounds like a lot. Like y'all remember, I don't even share this a lot, and I will share this. I was a high school dropout. Like I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Okay. All right. Or knife, however the saying goes. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want people to get so caught up in the little minute things to where they don't feel like this is a valuable option for them. And it really can be. Like at the end of the day, let's focus on getting the deals, talking to sellers, solving problems. That's all that matters because that is what's going to get you paid, right? And once you do that, then we can just rinse and repeat it, right? Just focus on the very first deal.
And not to get too far off topic, but I think it kind of goes with what you're saying, right? We're not wanting to scare people away from this opportunity that a lot of people have the ability of doing. Is that kind of that mentality and that approach to really life at this point? What really led to starting the Real Estate Corral Investors Network? Like, is that the private network you're trying to help others get into?
Yeah, it is kind of what started it. So the way that I got into it happened just by kind of chance, so to speak. So I mentioned my mentor that I started working with. Well, all of his community started saying like, well, Clifford's doing all these deals. What is he doing? How is he doing it? And so everybody just started reaching out to me, calling me. It got so crazy to where we had so many people coming over to my house, like working at our dining room table. And my wife was like, okay, we can't keep having all these folks over here at our house. To literally, he had to start reserving conference rooms because people just wanted to see me talk to sellers. It was crazy. And we called it marketing madness. And so we would rent these conference rooms and I would pull out my laptop and you would see it on the screen. I would just start having live calls with sellers and all of this other stuff. But just through that process, I realized that I'm going to toot my own horn, but I realized I had a gift for making it simple, right? In a way that people can understand it. And so that's kind of what launched the Real Estate Corral Investors Network, because I can help so many people get started, and we have in simple terms. Like, I'm not trying to throw all these fancy words at you and get you all like, look at me, I'm this big hotshot guy. Like, it's breaking it down in a way that any single person can do this.
And it sounds like this network is more involved than just a network, right? It's more than just people coming, talking, sharing drinks and whatnot. It sounds like there's a little bit of even an approach to educating even in this network. Is that right? Is there kind of a process to getting people involved more in wholesaling through this network?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a full community and mentorship program. So they get to work with me every single week, see deals I'm doing. I help them with deals they're doing, answer questions on deals they're doing. Like, we get to go through those things on a regular basis. Of course, there's the community where you get to partner with people, JV. You have access to capital, to title companies, to hard money lenders. And so it's an amazing network for people who are serious about real estate investing, serious about serving other people, and just being a part of something that's making an impact.
Awesome. And having so much impact on those lives, I'm kind of going to ask you a two-sided question here. What has really found through your experience has helped people? What are the really successful people doing from like a personality perspective or a mindset perspective? And where do you see people who kind of struggle? Where are they kind of stuck in?
Overthinking. Yeah, it really is. A lot of people get caught in the weeds. They try to figure out what's the right thing to say, what's not the right thing to say. But you really build your confidence in the doing, right? I tell everybody, when I started, I messed up thousands and thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, in thousands of calls. Like, I put my boot in my mouth so many times, I can still taste the leather. Like, and that's okay. Like, give yourself grace. I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Ed Milet, but we were speaking at an event and we were backstage talking. And that was one of the best advice that he's given me, because this was my first keynote speaking event. And so I had a full presentation and he's like, just give yourself some grace. This will be the worst that you ever do at this event right here. This will be the worst. You'll get better at every single one, right? And that's what happens. When you take action, that little bit of action, you're going to get better. The very first call you make will be the worst call you ever make. After that, you'll get a little bit better and a little bit better. But you have to give yourself that grace to keep moving forward.
So it sounds like too, the successful people are those that kind of are willing to be open to failure and open to giving themselves that grace and recognizing they won't be perfect right up front. Those people that you see actually skyrocket kind of. Awesome. Awesome. And so really when it comes down to that point, it's to your point, there is no ceiling with this, right? It's all up to you and how you want to take it. So with that, what is one major piece of advice that you feel helped shape your career and kind of take off your trajectory? What really helped you grow and stand out and people want to come and mentor with you?
I don't know. I think that I really do focus on serving. That's not a catch line. That's not something I say because it's cute or something that I think is cool. I truly believe that God put me on this earth to be of service and to glorify his kingdom. And so that's how I move and that's how I operate. Yeah, I do that in real estate. I do that with my coaching. I do that with my family, with my friends. And so that's just my positioning on everything. And I think, or I believe that maybe that's what draws people to me. If I'm answering the question, I don't know.
no different than an open mindset to being to failure. It sounds like honestly some of your success is having an open heart, being aware to what other people might have what they're going through, having had been there or not. You're willing to hear them out and say, "Hey, but I have an opportunity for you. Let's do this together." That sounds to me that's my take at least.
Yeah. And we get caught up in our own selves so much. And when you can say, hey, I don't just care about my pocketbook, I care about your pocketbook. I care about your family. I care to make sure that you're hitting your goals, that you're keeping the promises that you made to yourself, right? Like, and you're gonna come to find that we're all the same people dealing with all the same stuff, trying to navigate life, right? And yeah, we just have to get out of our own way to realize that.
Absolutely. And Cliff, if I can ask one more thing of you tonight, whether we've talked about it now or something that has you feel like you haven't been able a chance to mention yet, what's that one major piece of advice you would give to someone looking to transition out of the job they have now or not having a job now and they're looking for one? What's that one major piece of advice you'd give them to kind of get them started?
Number one, you have to be willing to take that leap of faith. It is scary. It's going to be nerve-wracking. But at the end of the day, what is the worst thing that can happen? And I want y'all to really take time to think about that. I quit my job within 3 months of getting started with real estate investing. And so for me, what was the absolute worst case that could happen? I fail miserably at real estate. And guess what? I go back to driving a truck. I go back to the same income that I was making. I go back to the same lifestyle that I was making. That is the worst that could happen, right? Like it's not the end of the world. So when you realize that, it kind of gives you a little bit of courage there. But also, secondly, you need to surround your people or yourself with people who, number one, pour into you. Number two, are where you're trying to go, right? I heard a saying the other day where it says, if you want a Rolls Royce, don't go ask somebody at the Toyota dealership how to get one, right? Like, so make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who actually are living and doing and breathing the lifestyle that you want, no matter what it is, right? Whether it's in your health, whether it's in your finances, whether it's in your relationships. I think that would be my two main things there.
And to ensure these people surround themselves with the right people or connections or education, right? Knowledge. Are there any books that were impactful to you, podcasts, YouTube University kind of stuff? What were some good educational items someone can kind of get into to start their journey on this?
My book, for one, I'll self-plug my book, Roadmap to Success. No, it's kind of hard to say. It's not just one. It's a melting pot of things. Number one, I'm a spiritual man. I'm definitely believe in connecting to God or, your higher power, whatever that may be, and actually reading it and understanding and diving into that. But secondly, I will say too, figure out what you need the most when it comes to books, right? Like for me, I didn't have any business skills, any leadership skills, any entrepreneur. Like I'm brand new. So I was literally finding books on business, like Your Next 5 Moves, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, Patrick Bet-David. That's an incredible podcast that impacted my life. Right? Like being specific on what I'm reading, not just reading something to be reading it.
For sure, a little bit of kind of internal reflection to your point of, hey, I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I know people have talked about needing, to your point, leadership skills, business knowledge, real estate knowledge. Let me kind of figure out where I'm lacking and build from that.
Exactly. 1,000%. It's cool for all my AI people, the Chat GPT people. You could literally go on there and build a growth plan for yourself. I've done this. Go in there and say, I'm a brand new entrepreneur. I need to work on my communication skills and my leadership skills. Can you create me, a 16-week study plan and reading material? And it's going to give you recommended books, recommended guidelines, like the whole nine. That's a little self-plug there.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And to that point, if people want to look to you for more education or knowledge or just get a chance to talk with you, where can they reach out to you to kind of get a chance to hear from you?
I'm very active on YouTube and Instagram, Clifford Walker, the Cowboy Closer. You'll see my link on Instagram that has all the details on upcoming events that I have, whether it's live training, free materials on how to get started. I do have a 5-step guide on actually how to get started. They'll be able to see that in that link, and they can download that. That's absolutely free.
Absolutely. We'll make sure those make it into the description down below if anyone wants to check them out. So, Clifford, it's been wonderful, sir. Again, nothing but great foundational items that we hope to grow from, and you were a part of it, man. So we definitely appreciate your time, your knowledge, your experience, and presenting that today. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure, brother. It was my pleasure.